Hey guys, Justin here with Rampengu Nation, and I don't know if you guys saw, but for Lightning Overdrive in the TCG, it is confirmed that we're getting a Diviner of Heralds. But not only that, we're also getting the rank 1 for Drytron, which is the Beta-Fafnir. So what that does, it allows us to be able to play the deck now without how we were prior to the ban list, where Unicare was the main bridge point. Now we have Fafnir as being the main bridge point of the deck in order to send our pieces. But not only that, is that Diviner of Herald now also gives us an easier way to make Beatrice, because it can become a level 6 when you send Herald of Arclight from our extra deck to the graveyard. So what does that mean? Well, it means now that we can do our whole ultimate play again, access 3 Drytrons from just 1 Drytron, and have like the full combo that we need with just like Alpha Ben 10, Zeta Ben 10, or like Alpha Zeta. Now, I'm going to go through a series of 3 combos I've constructed with this, and to show you how like they basically net the same board, but you're going to require different cards in your deck to do this. So there are more elaborate combos out there with the megalith cards, obviously, that you can extend further to make your like board like infinitely better. But if you guys want something that does not have to rely on megalith cards and just solely plays the fairy engine and then plays the good stuff cards with it, so you can play hand traps and other stuff like that, then this might be like the best version of it for you. Try to smash that like button, and let's try to hit 100 likes, and then I'll post the Diviner combos, where if you open Diviner of Herald in either Alpha or Zeta, we can also full combo. I'll post those 2 combos and the deck list in the next video. Alright, so let's jump right into it. So for the first combo, we're going to use just Alpha and Benton as the only cards in our hand. Now people are like, well, Benton's on 1, so like how is that really going to help us if you open Benton? Well, actually you play like the same number of Bentons like I've explained in my previous 2 videos. Preparation of Rites is essentially still your Benton. So let's assume you open like Alpha Benton or like Emergency Benton or anything of that sort, right? So let's get into it. So the very first thing you're going to do is obviously Alpha Tribute or Benton, and then we're going to search for Idaten and our Diviner of Heralds. Idaten comes into a play in a lot of our combos because we need a ritual summon 3 times, and her being a level 6 is super important also in order to make Beatrice. So I'll get to that. So now we're going to summon our Diviner, and then we're going to use our Diviner effect to send our Herald of Arclight. So Diviner is going to send Herald of Arclight from her extra deck, and then she is going to have her level increased by 4. So this makes Diviner a level 6. So this is actually like super cool, because the level 6 allows us to make Beatrice easier. So Arclight's going to then trigger Engrave to add a ritual spell or ritual monster from our deck to hand. We're going to use the effect here to add a ritual spell. So we're going to add a Medionis Drytron. So we're going to use a Medionis effect to revive our Ben 10. Now it's important that we keep the ritual card in our hand, because we need it to in order to use as a Drytron material. Now obviously, like if Ben 10 was a 2, this will be a Ben 10 in our hand and not just a Idaten, obviously, okay? So here we have 2 6s, and we're going to now overlay our 2 guys into Beatrice. She's like our main extender. Like she's essentially our pseudo Union carrier, because she also like sends the like piece of Union carrier would. So we're going to use her effect, and you want to make sure to detach Ben 10 here. This is important. And we're going to send has to be Gamma here, because Gamma is what's essentially going to be our like 1 card to make the Beta-Fafnir. So we're going to use our Gamma Engrave now, and then we're going to tribute our Idaten in our hand. We're going to summon out our Gamma and our Alpha. Going to use Medionis here on our Gamma to add it back to our hand. Now we're going to overlay the 2 into Beta-Fafnir, and it's going to have like a cool ability when it's XYZ summon. So when there's an XYZ summon, you can send a Drytron card from your deck to the grave, which is really cool, because you basically send the 3rd Drytron we're missing. We have Alpha and Gamma, but we're missing Zeta essentially. And also its other effect, its first effect is really important. If you were to use Drytrons for the material of a ritual summon, you can or if you use materials for a ritual summon, you can just detach the materials from Beta-Fafnir instead of having to tribute Drytron. So this is super important. So not only does this done, but this still acts as our 2 materials that we're going to use to ritual summon. So we're going to use our Beta to send our Zeta, and then we're going to use our Medionis, and we're going to detach one of our materials now to revive our Ben 10 from the grave. Now we're going to use our Zeta in the grave, and in this build we play 2 ritual spells, because the 2 ritual spells helps us to grind against like slower matchups, but now it like reserves the deck back to now we're not dependent if like our first ritual spell gets banished. Also lets it loops it with Idaten. So as you can see here, this is our 2nd ritual summon that we're doing. and we're going to add our Herald of Ultimateness off our Benton. So now we're going to use our Medionis that we got from our Zeta. There's still one in the graveyard, but you used this one we got off our Zeta. And we're going to detach from our Beta-Fafnir, and we're going to then summon our Herald of Ultimateness from our hand. Now we can turn our Beta-Fafnir and our Zeta into either IP, or you can make Herald of Mirage Light's hair. So either or is fine. So what do we net? Just Alpha Ben 10 essentially netted a Link 2, which is either Mirage Light or IP, a Beatrice, and Herald of Ultimateness. Now you're like, okay, well, this is a vanilla Herald of Ultimateness. Well, that's not true. During the opponent's turn now, we use Beatrice's effect to send our Ava, and then Ava is going to banish our Diviner of Heralds and our Herald of Arc Light because they're both our fairies. And then we're going to search, and the cool thing about this is that Ava has way more targets in the deck now because Diviner is a level 2 light fairy. So we're going to add to our hand our Diviner and our Herald of Orange Light. So we still net 2 negates with an IP interruption on Beatrice and a Herald of Ultimateness. Like, this is huge. Like, this is essentially kind of like what the deck did before, except this would be Ava in our hand, but then we wouldn't have like a link rainbow. But now we net like another interruption with our Masquerena. So it's essentially like the same thing that we had before, because now we still have 3 Drytrons in our grave, just like we did back when we had Unique Hair. But now we get all 3 Drytrons in grave, which is super insane. So that'll be it for like the first combo. So for the second combo, it's gonna be Zeta Ben 10. Now this one's slightly different. And this is why like it's super important, like why certain like the combos between Alpha and Zeta are like slightly different. So with Zeta, we're gonna go Zeta to tribute our Benton, and then we're gonna add our Medionis, and then Benton's gonna add our Diviners. You know, like same beginning. So now we're gonna use our Diviner to send our Arc Light to add our Iderton. Now you see the difference. It's like, okay, well, the board like looks the same, and you're like wondering like, okay, how is it different? Well, think about it. We're not going to be searching our second ritual spell because we already used Zeta this turn. So we're only going to have to use our one ritual spell this entire time, which is why the Iderton is actually important. So now we're going to use our Medionis. Medionis is going to tribute our Zeta, and then we're going to make our Beatrice. So this is basically the same play that we started off on. Beatrice effect detach to send our Gamma. And then we're going to Gamma tribute our Iderton to revive Gamma and Zeta. And then we're going to Medionis on one of these guys. It's irrelevant which one. Now we're going to make our Beta-Fafnir. Beta-Fafnir is then going to dump our Alpha to the grave. Now, before we Medionis back our Benton, and then we Zeta on our Benton to search for the Herald and for the Medionis. Well, what we're going to do instead is just Medionis on our Beta-Fafnir to make Iderton, and then Iderton is going to add back Medionis to our hand. So that's how we get our Medionis essentially back, because if not, if we revived Benton there, we can't get our Medionis back. Because then even if we go Alpha to tribute on our Medionis, we don't have the other ritual spell or any access to it. So we have to use Iderton there to grab back our Medionis. We're going to use Alpha on our Iderton now to grab our Herald of Ultimateness. Now, you're going to do the exact same thing before, Medionis on our Beta. And remember, this is not a once per turn effect to tribute. It says that you can use each of the following effects of Beta-Fafnir. This right here is a condition to summon the ritual monsters. So using the materials instead is totally legal, and you can do it multiple times in a turn. So I'm going to do that, and now we're going to use our Beta and our Alpha to then make our IP. It's the same ending board, but do you see how it's different? That instead of ritual summoning back our Benton and using our second ritual spell, we did our Iderton and used our Alpha instead. So now we're going to use our Beatrice. Beatrice is going to send our Ava, and it's going to still net 2 negates as it did before. Same thing. So we're like, okay, well, this is super simple. We got like 1 Drytron and Benton, like, but it's still like the same pressure that we had in the previous format, which is like super good. But what's really nice is now that Alpha Zeta, it becomes like an insane combo. So let's get to that one. So what does Alpha Zeta actually net now? Well, it's a lot more. So Alpha is going to tribute our Zeta, and then we're going to add our Benton. Then we're going to use Zeta to tribute our Benton to search for our Medionis. So now we have Alpha, Zeta, Medionis. And Benton's going to add our Diviner of Heralds. Now we can just turn those two into Beta-Fafnir instantly. Beta is going to trigger, and then we're going to dump our Gamma. Then we're going to use Medionis, detach our Beta, and then use to get back our Benton. So now we're going to use our Gamma Engraved Hair to tribute and revive, and then Benton's going to trigger now, and then we're going to add our Idaten. Now this is important. Like I said, each of these combos as a bridge is going to need the Idaten because we're missing the Benton that we used to have before. So Idaten kind of fills in that gap like that we didn't have before, because she is a level 6, which is super important for Beatrice. But she also lets us like bridge the gap. It basically transforms a Drytron into a level 6 monster while keeping that ritual spell, which is like super important. So we're now going to use our Medionis on one of our Drytrons as relevant, which are the little ones here. Not the XYZ, but just one of these guys. And then we're going to like summon our Diviner. Diviner's going to summon our Herald of Arclight. And then we're going to add our Herald of Ultimateness. So now we have all our pieces. And you're like, well, this looks kind of like the same like the other two combos. Well, it's a little different. Because now we're going to use Medionis, tribute our Alpha, summon out our Idaten. Idaten is going to then trigger to add back our Medionis. You're like, okay, why didn't you tribute the Mu Beta-Fafnir? It honestly doesn't matter. You can do the Mu Beta first to summon back the Idaten. You'll just have the Alpha. But then you just tribute the Alpha for the Ultimateness. It's literally the exact same thing. So we're going to overlay now our Diviner and our Idaten. Because remember, Diviner is a 6 because we sent our Herald of Arclight to make Beatrice. Beatrice is going to detach our Diviner to send our Ava. So now you're going to have Ava being able to send Ava on your turn because we already have our 3 Drytron names. There's Zeta, the Alpha, and the Gamma already. So I'm going to add our Orange Light and another Diviner of Heralds. This is what's super neat. Is now Ava has like better interaction with the deck because Diviner is a level 2 Light Fairy, which is nice because she's a starter. She's essentially a Manju that's like even better because she's accessible through Ava, which is like one of your best searches in the deck. So now we're going to use our Medionis, and then we're going to detach our Mu Beta instead as the material to summon out our Herald of Ultimateness. Now we can turn those two into a Link 2 again. But on our opponent's turn now, we're going to have another set of negates because we dump another Ava. And we can banish the first Ava off of the second Ava with the Idaten as our fairy target. So we get to still keep our Benton in the graveyard. And we get to search for our Herald of Orange Light. And you guessed it, our 3rd Diviner of Heralds. So now we have net 4 negates with just Alpha and Zeta. So like you can play like all the cool megalith cards and get that combo off like more, and like obviously get another trigger off your Benton by using like full to pot. Well, there's some issues with that. Full, if it ever gets interacted with and you're trying to add back your Benton, if they ogre it or if they like Heraldic Seal bounce it while you're trying to do that, it has to be able to set its level to the monster you're trying to add back. Otherwise you can't add the monster back, which is huge. Not only that, you're dedicating one of your searches to that card, which is full. In this version, where if we're not focusing on the megalith cards at all, but we're streamlining it to simply just the fairy ritual monsters, you're able now to put so many extra cards in your deck, like pots, ashes, droplet, whatever you want in your deck, because now your main fairy targets are just your Ultimateness, Benton, Natasha, Idaten, and then you can fit the 5th ritual monster, which I fit in, which was the Draconids. Because Draconids is cool because it can use as one of your materials to revive one of your guys from your hand, let's say if you have a way to search for a ritual monster. So hopefully this video is like super informative what like Diviner and Fafnir does now for the deck, because now we're not super reliant anymore on just trying to get off the full package to get our Benton searches off, but it makes the deck very streamlined and super competitive and like really good again. So, and for your following turn, your Herald of like Diviner is going to be able to like net a following play because you can send your second Herald of Arclight or a Netis to pop a card and do it play. If you guys like this video and would like to see the next 2 combos in the deck list, just make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and then share this around with your friends. This is Justin with Rampengu Nation, and see you guys.